As we get ready to close the book on the 2022 season, I feel 100% comfortable saying it's been an enjoyable campaign. It had just about everything you could want. Some supposed good teams falling down the table, some supposed bad teams reaching new heights, new breakout stars coming in from Europe in their prime, record-breaking attendances, huge mid-season acquisitions, and a ton of goals in between. And as we prepare for the 27th edition of MLS Cup, I love the fact that after such a tight race for the Supporter Shield, that we have the two best teams in this league meeting in the final. On one side, the glitz and glamour of LAFC, and on the other, the hard-working, ground-up building of the Philadelphia Union. The 2022 MLS Cup is going to be a big one, where a new first-time champion will be crowned. For LAFC, I think it's best to start the story of their season all the way back in January, where they announced their new head coach Steve Cherundolo. It seemed to be a risky move. LAFC were coming off another disappointing year, this time not even qualifying for the playoffs, and along with that, Bob Bradley's time with the club was coming to an end. So LAFC needed to get their head coach appointment right because Carlos Vela wouldn't be at the top of his game forever, and this was a side that needed to return to their previous glory as soon as possible. So you'd imagine the shock when LAFC announced that Steve Cherundolo, a first-time top-flight coach, would take the wheel. The same Steve Cherundolo that only managed a 6-23-3 record with the Las Vegas Lights in the USL the previous season. I'll admit, this signing did not bring me a lot of hope that LAFC could turn their fortunes around in 1 year, and with the pressure that LAFC supporters put on Cherundolo at a preseason meeting, it appeared that they weren't fully bought in either.
To let you know that for us, like I told you on the Zoom call, we're not going to settle for less than the MLS Cup. So this is not a development team, and I hope that's not the goal, because that's what worries me about a little.
For Philadelphia, coming into this season, there weren't many questions on what this team could achieve. Since 2020, the Philadelphia Union have done an outstanding job cementing themselves as one of the top teams in the league. Jim Curtin and the Philadelphia Union were pulling off the perfect system of developing players, cashing in on them, and still remaining top of the East. Along with that system, the Union invested heavily into their attack, bringing in a record transfer fee signing and also doing what the Union do, diving into the MLS transfer market and pulling off some great deals. In this case, it was bringing in Julian Carranza from Inter Miami for a fraction of the $6 million that Miami first paid for him. With a proven back line, a hard-working midfield, and a new attack, the Union were ready to raise the level in order to prove themselves once again. I think for both of these teams, it's right to split this season into two halves. For LAFC, the first half of their 2022 campaign was, for the lack of a better term, almost as good as it can get, consistently outscoring opponents by multiple goals and limiting their goals conceded significantly. There were a tough few results in games where it really mattered, like El Tráfico at LA Galaxy and at home to second place Austin FC. But in general, LAFC began their season looking like they could be clear favorites for the Supporter Shield. I think what we saw this time was not only LAFC's foreign stars making huge impacts with Chicho Arango consistently on the score sheet, but also, as I mentioned earlier, the MLS experience that LAFC added to the roster this season proved to be vital. All the parts were working smoothly. And then the mid-season transfer window came, which is where I split the season for both of these teams. In this transfer window, LAFC really wanted to go all in on this year, so they splashed the cash on foreign talent, something we expect from a team in LA. It looked to be an amazing window. The World Cup winning Giorgio Chiellini came over from Juventus, Christian Teo came over from playing in La Liga, a new DP was added in Dennis Bouanga, and the biggest of all, Gareth Bale signed from Real Madrid. It was unbelievable. How could LAFC pull all of this off in one window? If they were already so good, now imagine what they can do with all these new stars. LAFC were the biggest story in this league, and I for one said, yep, they're going to win the Supporter Shield, no doubt, but it didn't work out quite like that. After bringing in 5 or so players in that window and shipping off another 4 names, it felt like LAFC hurt the overall energy that was in this team. These big signings did not really make an impact whatsoever at first. Bale never played, and when he did, LAFC lost multiple times. And after being so dominant for that first half of the year, LAFC dropped 1 game, then 2, then 3, and eventually they finished the season with only 3 wins in their final 9 games. On the Union side, the first half of their season was similar to LAFC's in the fact that they were also performing very well. We saw big wins against top teams at Subaru Park, but also when they went on the road. The backline was as good as ever, with Andre Blake, Jacob Glesnes, and Jack Elliott proving that they were still a headache to beat. Along with that, in the attack, although a work in progress, was doing just enough through multiple faces such as Daniel Gazdag, Corey Burke, and Ali Bedoya. I mean, you name it. But those big offseason signings were not really hitting just yet, with Michael Ura slow to get involved in the starting lineup and Julian Carranza only adding a few goals. So let's do some math here. An attack that wasn't firing on all cylinders, plus a defense that is hard to break down. Yes, it equals draws, and a lot of draws. At one point, the Union found themselves drawing 5 games in a row, and then after a win following that 5th game, they got another 2 draws. I mean, you'd think this was an art class with how much the Union was drawing in the first half of this year. But, like with LAFC, the season was of 2 halves, because after the Union figured out how to attack the goal, they could not stop. This Philadelphia team achieved more 6+ goal victories this season than any other team has done within the history of MLS. In 2 months, the Union achieved what other teams have not done in 27 years of playing. Unbelievable. 46 goals in 16 games, and with that, the Union only conceded 26 goals across their 34 regular season games. This squad not only ended the season with the best attack in the league with 72 goals, but they also had the best defense. From the number 9 to the number 1, the Philadelphia Union were the most complete team in MLS by far. But they couldn't get one over LAFC in the race for the Supporters' Shield, as LAFC locked it up with 1 game to spare, even though they both ended up on 67 points. So honestly, these two sides kind of mirrored each other's season, with LAFC being really strong and then struggling, and the Union struggling and then finishing really strong. But one aspect that these sides don't mirror each other is their overall club building strategy. Both sides are successful in each way they build out their club, but I think it's very interesting to see how drastic these sides are off the field. LAFC, in my opinion, embodies what Los Angeles, California is like. Everyone wants to be there. That's where the money is. That's where the weather is. That's where the stars are. And that's what I feel about LAFC. LAFC, being in LA, they are all about star power. Sign the biggest names, pay the biggest wages, and get all the attention. We've seen this strategy from the beginning with their first signing, Carlos Vela, all the way up till now in the acquisition of Bale, Chiellini, and Boadanga. There's nothing wrong with this way of creating your club culture. It's been proven to work, and it's definitely a viable option for success in MLS. And on the other side, the Philadelphia Union, in my opinion, embodies what Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is all about. Philadelphia is seen as a gritty city where people work hard to create their future. They don't take handouts and they earn what they deserve. For the Union, I see it the same way. There's no reason Philadelphia should be so consistent in dominating Major League Soccer. But through the way that they've set their club up, they earn the right to be where they are. They don't spend crazy money like other clubs, but instead they invest in their academy and produce stars for the first team. Then, when it's time, they sell them off for great profit. The Union don't have the standout stars, but they have a team of guys who give everything they have each game. Once again, this is a strategy that can work in MLS, and the Union do it to the greatest success. For this game, we're looking at 2 cities with 2 teams who are drastically different from one another, but still find a way to compete at the same level. Both of these sides rightfully earn their position in MLS Cup, not only through the 34-game regular season, but also in the playoffs. It's not often that a first-seed team can make it to MLS Cup, and it's even more rare that both first-seed teams make it. For the first time since 2003, MLS Cup will feature the literal 2 best teams from the regular season, and with both sides eyeing down their first MLS Cup, it's going to be a game you can't miss. And now let's break down the game. LAFC versus Philadelphia. I mean, it's a game that's been exciting for the last few years. We got our first real taste of this matchup back in 2020, in the last game before the league was shut down, and it was an instant classic. 3-3 with two teams just going at it. Beautiful goals and absolutely insane free kicks. Then, even this season, when these teams came up against each other, it was another match that we saw 100% effort the entire time, in a match that ended 2-2. If this final is even an inkling like those two games, we're in for a good one. For each team, I have one key to watch. For LAFC, it's their attack. Against Austin in the last round, it was the most fluent I've seen those front three play all year. Vela, Chicho, Bouanga, all were connecting on another level, totally pushing through that Austin defense. Bouanga's found great success so far in this postseason, pushing the back lines and finding space in behind in times where I don't even know how he does it. And Chicho has been as influential as he has been all year, picking up huge goals in the winning goal versus the Galaxy in the 90-plus third minute, and technically the game-winning goal versus Austin in the opening 30 minutes. With so much excellence behind the front three as well, the threat of this attacking trio is at another level. If Chiellini starts, he's able to play dimes out of the back, and if he's shut out or not on the field, Murillo has the same attributes to his game. We've seen the full effect of this style in the previous match, and right now I think this LAFC team is playing as best as they have all year with this specific group of players. For the Union, my big key for them is what could possibly nullify LAFC's biggest strength. The Philadelphia backline has been impenetrable this season. With only 26 goals conceded on the year, the Union are bringing the best defense in the league against a side that will truly test them. It's the classic paradox of the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. MLS Defender of the Year Jacob Glesnes has found great success with Jack Elliott, and going back to the mantra of Philadelphia, these guys are just fighters that pull out everything available in order to break apart attacks. On top of that, Jacob Glesnes, a center back, is also notorious in Philly for pulling off huge moments in the attack, whether it was his 40-yard free kick rocket he scored against LAFC in 2020 or his last-minute outside-the-box volley in last year's playoffs. Now let's say LAFC gets behind this back four. Well, then they have the task of trying to score past the brick wall known as Andre Blake. Especially in these playoffs, Andre Blake has saved the Union on countless occasions. Every game you can bet on there being a jaw-dropping save from the first overall 2014 Super Draft pick. Whenever the moment is big, Andre Blake steps up, and it's a big reason to why he's been nominated as an MLS MVP for the second time in 3 years. As with every MLS Cup, it's important to mention where the game will be played. This year, it's in LA, which already puts the Union at a disadvantage, but I kind of think they'd like that underdog tag for this matchup. The Bank of California has been a fortress for LAFC this season, with LA only losing 2 games at home. I've been a huge fan of this Philadelphia team for the last few years, and for me, I had them winning MLS Cup against almost every opponent, except LAFC. Regardless of the rest of the year, coming into this game, LAFC are hitting their peak right now, finally figuring out how to get the best out of some of their new signings. Meanwhile, I'm not sure if we're getting the best of Philadelphia. With a few injuries coming into play, the Union stumbled out of the regular season, and they only just got by Cincinnati and had to make a late comeback versus NYCFC. I love what the Union are about, and if this game was at Subaru Park, I may say something different, but in LA, I think LAFC won't let this chance slip. The winner of MLS Cup 2022 will be LAFC with a 2-0 scoreline. And either way this game pans out, I'll be satisfied with the ending. I'm just happy we're getting to see 2 of the very best teams from this year duel on the biggest stage. Let me know your predictions down in the comments, and until next time, thanks for watching.